Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first time we're going to be doing this. This is the afterthought or the after show. We just interviewed Georgia Smith, the daughter of the British Bulldog. And as we're just sitting in the back, we just kept talking about scenarios and scenarios and scenarios. And we just thought, hey, we'll just hit the record button. Whoever watches joins us. This is the aftermath, the afterthought, the what if scenario if the British Bulldog was still around.
Mhm.
Um, we were just discussing what were we discussing? Like what were you saying right before we started everything? I totally forgot.
What was I talking? I was talking about remembering a lot of his old matches from like when I was young and
Right.
just them all. And I was sitting there saying about how like his tag team matches and stuff like that, and then looking at his later years when he was like the hardcore, going against like Al Snow, like Boss Man, like all of those matches. Those are the ones that I really remember a lot more in detail because I was a little older, my memory's a little bit better versus when I was a child. I don't really remember too much. A little youngin, little whippersnapper, you
I
know.
honestly, I never liked British Bulldog in the jeans.
I
I don't know why. I don't know what about it. British Bulldog in jeans just wasn't my thing. Um, I was kind of upset when he didn't like he was in two main event pay-per-views. Being in
Yeah,
two main event pay-per-views, awesome, great. But he should have had the title, even if it was for like one day and he loses it on Monday. I
yeah.
would not have cared. As long as he won the title one time, I would have been okay with it. But if he didn't pass away, could you imagine? And this is what Georgia said when Owen Hart, when Davey just was botched in WCW, he is now, he's now about to join WWE. He signs a contract with WWE right before Owen's passing,
Mhm.
and Owen and Bullock are supposed to have a tag team run. Could you imagine if they weren't like, all right, we talk about this, and we're probably gonna say this right now. TLC would be a whole totally different ball game. We're talking about a what if. What if it wasn't the Dudley Boys? What if it was Bulldog and Owen Hart
Yeah.
against Jeff Hardy, against the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian? What if one of those four? What if one of those three were out? What if it wasn't Edge and Christian? It was it was Bulldog and Owen Hart. There is that what if situation.
And you would have seen, I think, a little bit better of a wrestling between them because they had, the family dynamic. They knew what they were doing, in the ring, being that they wrestled so long and together. I would love to have seen it. I remember watching that wrestling event where Owen Hart, tragically lost his life. And I remember sitting with me and Eric Fusco. We had rented it and we had done the pay per view, and we were all sitting there watching it. And I remember they were showing something, and, they showed the ring, but then as they started doing, all of a sudden they panned to the crowd, and we all sat there. And Eric's like, "Oh, I wonder what happened." I'm like, "There must have been a screw up, and somebody literally lost their life because we see
You know,
him in, and next thing you know, there's something happened." And we knew Owen liked to come in that way.
yeah.
And to watch all of those other wrestlers for the next hour and a half to 2 hours or so put on a show and do it, like, I give them all credit. There's no way in heck I could have done that and been able to put on a show. And the fact that they were able to was absolutely amazing. And to think that Davey Boy Smith could have been a part of that and wrestled
Hmm.
on for a few more years. And I think with Owen there, you would have seen him into the WWE for at least another 5 or 6 years. I think he
Yeah.
would have lasted a lot more longer. He would add a little more longevity to his life because Owen was an up and comer and he was a superstar at that time. He was a guy that
Owen
was hard.
Owen would have had the Attitude title before the invasion,
Oh yeah.
or or Owen would have been where Jericho is
Oh,
when
definitely.
Jericho won both titles. If Owen didn't, if the accident never happened, would Owen be in that? Would Owen be in that spotlight? Would Owen be WWE champion? Would he have been world heavyweight champion, especially WWF? would he have been undisputed champion?
I think so. Yes. Owen
I
had Owen had the mic skills. He had the mat skills. He could wrestle in and out. He was like, the Hart Foundation. They were royalty for wrestling. So he would have been, and I think Vince McMahon definitely would have gave him that spot and gave him a shot with it, and he would have ran with it. He would have had a couple of matches here and there, maybe lost a few titles and stuff like that. He would have re-gotten it. We could have definitely seen him maybe 3-4 time WWE
Mhm.
champion easily, without a doubt. Great matches probably against The Rock for a title, Austin for a title.
I would have seen Owen be a. It would have been Owen would have been a two-time WWE champion, or he would have been a one-time WWF champion of the Attitude title, and he probably would have been on the cusp of undisputed champion. As far as later down the line, when Brock Lesnar, Undertaker, Hulk Hogan coming around, I don't see that. I probably would have a harder time seeing it.
Mhm.
But if you brought him back into like a mid card area, especially back into like, his skills were so good. You could have had him on the. He would have definitely been an amazing United States champion. He would have been gone back, been an amazing intercontinental champion, and still held the brand even during the ruthless aggression. Because you would have had him with Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
Imagine Owen Hart with Chris Benoit. Imagine Owen Hart with Kurt Angle. Forget like some of the other stuff. Kurt Angle and Owen Hart would have been a really cool match to watch because I would like to see Kurt Angle with Bret Hart. So if I
Oh,
can't see Bret Hart versus Kurt Angle, I would have loved to see Owen Hart with Kurt Angle.
yeah, I
I
mean,
love, yeah.
no, I agree with you. I mean, Bret Hart was, oh my God, such a tactician on the mat and stuff like that. And having Bret versus a Kurt Angle,
Hmm.
oh God, man, I would love to see those matches to see who would have done the submission holds in the different way. And don't get me wrong, Kurt, I give it to Bret all day. If it's pure wrestling skills, I think Bret beats him out all day. I think if it's a pure wrestling thing, WWE style, they're going to put in a great entertainment. Kurt's going to win his half of the matches. Bret is. But if you went wrestling for wrestling, I think I would have gave it to Bret over Kurt. The different wrestling styles that they did, I think Bret would have had the upper hand on that.
My favorite is the 2 out of 3 championship match when it was Kurt Angle, where Kurt Angle was the two-time. He was the Eurocontinental champion at the time. He'd be the second Eurocontinental champion, the first one being D'Lo Brown, but that's a whole other story. But having Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho at that moment, Owen Hart should have been in that. Owen Hart should be in that conversation. Take out Jericho. If Owen Hart was around, you don't have a Chris Jericho. You'd
No.
have Owen Hart in the place of Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is botch central because you want to have Owen Hart, the guy who broke Stone Cold Steve Austin's neck, and he's a reason why Stone Cold Steve Austin cherishes Stone Cold Steve Austin cherishes that Intercontinental Championship more than any other title he's ever won
Mm-hmm.
because of who he won it against.
And honestly, even I think with we're talking about Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith, I think both of these two, the Intercontinental, champion for
Hmm.
many, or at least a couple of years. I think they would have had some great matches. Give Owen his run at the WWE,
Yeah,
let him have the championship belt, get him for 1 or 2, and then you have some of the other up and comers. He steps back a little, but he's still that Intercontinental. He's still in that mix for it. Owen could have dominated, I think, the WWE for a few more years, at least a good 6-7 years more. He would have been the
oh, he
name,
was young. He was so young.
and obviously we all know that it would happen. Like his contract would be up. Vince would want to get rid of him for a little bit. He'd go to WCW or AEW or and whatever it is.
At that point in time, they were at that point in time there was no WCW. Then later came the invasion.
Oh yeah.
You would actually have him off during the invasion.
Hmm. I mean, he would have been the guy that would have been brought back multiple times, and he would have been a champion for, I mean, many years. I mean, what were some of your wrestling matches that you loved from back then? You know?
Mine are such blurs in a way where I had to go watch them on VHS to remember them because my father did not like watching wrestling.
Oh,
And
really?
and going to Blockbuster. Yes, going to Blockbuster for the day, trying to rent out the previous pay-per-view just to watch it. I'd have to watch it when I could have access to the TV. And remember, in the household of the 80s, there was only one TV in the whole entire house. It wasn't multiple TVs. It was one TV in the house. And if everyone was watching that TV, you couldn't watch what you could wanted to watch. Um, the only memory, my first memory is when when they re-aired the Hulk Hogan Andre the Giant match on the USA Network.
Yeah.
And I remember flipping to the top box. You have to push the buttons to get to the channels, and we put on wrestling. And there was the Iron Sheik right there, the only Persian speaking of Farsi and everything. And I caught my parents' attention. Then they go, "What the hell is this garbage? No Persian would ever do this to their life, whatever," making fun of the Iron Sheik. And I was hooked because I didn't have like Persians weren't on TV. Persians were I'm gonna say it, Persians were the terrorists.
Yeah.
He played he played that part very well, but I didn't know how it was supposed to be. So then I see Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant match, and I see the liftover. Couple years down the line, I didn't get it to the LGNs. My start was the Hasbro figures. Um, where the 1990s 91 Hasbro figures, and going to the stores, like going to Woolworths, going to the local hardware stores. Some of the hardware stores carried them,
Yes, it is.
especially here in Glen Cove. You had Woolworths, and you had a store called Eisenstats, and Eisenstats carried almost every single Hasbro action figure you can get your hands on before they closed for good. But they also had a big gaming section like Atari and Nintendo and stuff like that too. Um, and then I got into Bret Hart, Undertaker, seeing Undertaker beat Hulk Hogan for the WWF Championship. Then years down the line, my other biggest memory was being at a family friend's house, and one of the family friends, there was a TV downstairs in the basement, and one of the kids put on WWF pay-per-view, which was SummerSlam 91, 92. And I got to see British Bulldog versus Bret the Hitman Hart right there on the screen, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't leave my my parents' friend's house. Remember, Sunday late night, we're about to leave the family friend's house. I'm like, "No, we're not leaving. I have to watch the rest of this match. I have to watch this." And they're like, "Why?" Like, "It's family versus family. It's family versus family," you know.
I think
And
no, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, and then later in high school, I did get to see more pay-per-views, and it kind of sucks. I did watch that pay-per-view where Owen plunged,
Yep.
and they did a really bad job of taking care of Owen, and the camera angles were terrible, throwing it away. Uh, Jerry the King Lawler, you literally see Jerry the King Lawler run into the ring as well too. Um, you like everything on a standstill of trying to figure something out, and then the show kept going. But looking at Jerry the King Lawler's face
Oh God, yeah.
and Jim Ross's face at the
Mhm.
same time, I was in tears before they even announced anything because it like um how many people can say they fell from the scaffolding, hit something, and survived? No one.
Right.
No one.
And I like, to talk about some of the earlier matches. Like, I remember it was like Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. Like you're saying, like that was such a huge thing of WrestleMania. To see that. One of my favorite old school wrestling matches was Ravishing Rick Rude, where he was the Intercontinental title holder, and he sat there. Yeah, he did all this, and he came out there in the middle of the ring, and he's like, "This is ridiculous. How is it a
Val
WrestleMania? And I
Venus
don't have a
before Val
match."
Venus.
Yeah, before Val Venus. He's like, and how do I not have a match? This is ridiculous. I'll wrestle any bum back there. Anybody comes out. And it's like you're waiting like 45 seconds, 60 seconds, and all of a sudden you hear the music and you watch this Tasmanian devil come running out of the back. And I flipped. I loved Ultimate Warrior. And he's running, and he gets in the ring. He does all the force, the turnbuckles, does it all. Defeats him in less than 35 seconds, 40 seconds, something, takes the belt and runs back out like he did.
Right.
And I was like, all right, this is the greatest thing ever. I don't care. I'm hooked on wrestling. And to watch those matches, and one of my friends, Billy Damaris,
Right.
and we would go to his house. I would go to his house for every WrestleMania for like 10
Mhm.
years. always his dad, his mom, they put on like it was a spectacle at their house. Like we were all dressed in our WrestleMania, Hulkamania shirts and everything, and we did all that stuff, and it was so much fun to watch those. And then when I lived with Eric, we used to do the WrestleMania events, and we rented them all the time and did it. And I remember one time, me and Eric actually went to one of the wrestling events that was down in Providence,
Right.
Rhode
Awesome.
Island, and it was a live event, and we were actually on TV. And there's a match where it's The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, and The Rock was kind of like the heel of the time. And me and Eric, we ran all the way down as far as we could in front, and we're in front of The Rock and stuff like that. And you see The Rock, and like me and Eric are like flipping him off in his face because we were like Stone Cold fans. We're like giving the finger.
F you.
The Rock
Yeah.
does the like he looks at us like he's gonna smack us like the jabronis, and then he spits on the ground. He grabs Stone Cold and walks off, and we're on TV, and you see The Rock and see me and Eric in front of him, like doing this with the fingers up, and like that to me is like ultimate stuff to see. Like the wrestling events and the memories we have from that is absolutely incredible. And then, like you said, where you see that match where I'm watching them doing an interview with Triple H,
Yeah.
and he's about to wrestle or China, and I think it was X-Pac, and you could see these guys crying.
Yeah.
And and you're watching these guys like these are wrestlers, like they don't cry, like we don't see none of this stuff in the back behind the scenes, and they're about to go on stage and they have to put on a show where they
Yeah.
just watched one of their friends pass away, and you can
Like
see
he
the
got
slumber.
wheeled.
Yeah,
He got wheeled, and you don't even like move his hands to put on his chest to make it look like he's okay. His hand is dangling as they
yeah,
put him in the back.
yeah. And
Like,
I remember going on like when that happened, like ran to my computer and I'm trying to look on the internet. And back then it was dial up people. It was not that fast of internet, So we're trying to look around
ding,
online to
ding,
see
ding,
what's
ding.
going on. Boost anything. And then you can see all the message boards and people are saying, Owen died. Owen fell out of the crowd. People were taking pictures of it, but you couldn't see it online fast enough because, back then computers and phones didn't exist like they do now,
There
you know?
is there is actual video footage, and I remember it getting torn down.
Oh
And
yeah.
this wasn't the start of YouTube. This was the start of another video company or whatever. And I remember a lot of footage. They have the drop. A lot of fans have the drop,
Mhm.
and I don't know how the insurance company did it. I mean, look, we're speculating way too much stuff, but the fact that within a few hours every video was pulled,
Oh yeah.
we're talking about like the start of AO. We're talking about AOL back in the day.
Oh
We're
yeah.
talking about every computer, most schools having the start of computers in the classroom, computers at home, dial up, WWE. It was WWF.com, but this was the
Yep.
start of also WWF.com. And I mean, you couldn't find the footage, but people had pictures.
Yeah.
Pictures were taken down.
Mhm.
Pictures were up. All I had to do was go to the chat rooms, and if you had AOL, you were part of those chat rooms
Oh yeah.
and message everyone like so chat rooms. If everyone doesn't know, they were the start of message boards, and you could share pictures. They weren't the greatest pictures, but you could share pictures.
Yeah.
There was a lot of Owen Hart. They were pixelated as hell. The images were
Yep.
small. They were as small as these screens that you see right here, but they were up.
Yep.
They were up.
And it's like you
Um,
said too, and you see the match too, like the ring, you could see the blood on it. And then like you said Jerry Lawler, you saw Ross, and you saw the look on their face, and they're trying to call a match, and you could see they're fighting back tears anytime they pan to them. And the fact that, I mean, come on, those people that are front row, they must have been traumatized just as bad,
Look
you
at all the
know?
kids.
Yeah.
You had to hand every single kid, every kid. You had to hand every kid the keys to the kingdom for the full year of merchandising like crazy, so that they never remember that incident ever again. But mom and dad knew what they saw.
Oh yeah.
So the only way, and I don't know how those kids got away with not going to therapy,
Right.
because you should. I mean, 25,000 plus people watched a man fall to his death. If every single person didn't get a 1 year package of something, I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
That's
Yeah, I
the
mean,
only way you can get like all these kids to forget something is dish them toys, 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 merchandise, merchandise, merchandise. They don't even remember what happened to Owen Hart that night.
next time we come around, you get free tickets. We're not going to put you front row. We might put you somewhere else because we don't want to traumatize you again.
That was
But
of anyone going to the scaffolding and coming down.
yeah, that was like pretty much the end of it after that because, and I think it was, they said it was his harness snapped or something, or the thing wasn't attached properly or something. I mean,
So the
that's
original,
scary.
so the original story that I remember was that he was hanging or whatever, and he had pulled the wrong thing, and it was apparently originally was on his chest. Originally was on his chest. That was the original story. So when Dark Side of the Ring gets aired, Godfather and everyone else is now blaming it on the boa. They're now blaming it on there was a second crew that was there. They were also talking about how like they don't remember, Owen's Hart's face had changed drastically. And they were blaming it on the boa being caught and the exit thing to get it out of the harness was behind him.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how. I'm not a mountain climber. I don't know nothing about this stuff. But if your superstar isn't comfortable the first time doing it, what made you think the second time was going to be any better? What made you think that the practice, if your guy is not okay with the practice run and you did it one time, you did a practice run one time because he has to go, he has to, once he comes back down, he got to take those stairs all the way back up, around the building, up and around to go back upstairs.
Yeah. It's
That's
not
another
like you
30,
just have
20.
an elevator that goes upstairs, you know?
Right. And it's not like they practice to bring him up and down to make him feel comfortable, like a bungee cord, to bring Owen Hart from the top of the scaffolding and bring him back down and bring him back up. Just figure out a way. Um, and yet again, this is all like a giant like what if. Our theory is what if Bulldog didn't have a heart attack back in 2000? What if Owen Hart didn't have that tragic fall? What would WWF and E be like with them two still around? What would Bret Hart be? Would Bret Hart come back after being part of Montreal Screwjob, and then seeing his brother, seeing Bulldog's success? Would that door been opened a lot sooner?
Hmm. I think so. I do. I mean, we know the Montreal screw job and we know how much that is, that gnaws on,
Yeah,
Bret Hart. And we've all seen the stories. We've all talked about it. And, you know, Shawn Michaels, he should have taken the fall. He should have. I mean, to give
and
it to Bret, that's like the godfather of the industry.
yeah,
And you had a chance to lose to him. And if you had done it properly, and he would have let you win the next match and would have handed you the keys to the kingdom.
yeah,
You were
you
a
would have.
petulant child, wanted the belt, and you know, and I think Vince McMahon wanted Shawn Michaels to be the champ because he was the more up and comer guy, and he was the one he could sell the marketing to, the merchandise, and he was looking at that where Bret was taking. I'm sorry, Shawn was taking off where Bret wasn't,
Right,
and I think that's
right.
why he did it.
Sean had DX, and the fact that you had DX was a bigger push than Bret Hart. You had to suck a chance. Yes, we get it. It's all about marketing. I mean,
Mhm.
Bret Hart in a way was out the door, and yeah, Bret Hart's scenario seems like a really good scenario because it looked like he would have played ball. The
Hell
fact that
yeah.
you had your guy, like, okay, granted his contract ends that night, he would have played ball and showed up the next day because they're all on the same hotel, they're all on the same roof. He would have showed up, handed Vince the belt because Brett came from a wrestling family.
Mhm.
Brett would have done great for business because why? His dad would kick his ass. Remember,
Oh yeah.
Stu Hart was still alive at the time. Stu Hart would beat the living hell out of Brett at that moment. Be like, no, you're showing up to WWF. You're handing Vince the belt. Even if you have to go to the office, you're handing him the belt. Plain and
Mhm.
simple. And
And
you're
I
not
think he
showing
would have.
up like, but Vince's fear was what happened with Alundra Blaze and with Scott Hall, Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
If those three things never happened, Vince McMahon never would have feared Bret Hart winning and him going. He was going to sign to WCW. He would have signed for WCW anyway. But I
Right.
think Bret wanted a break anyway, and I think during that start of the Attitude Era, Bret taking a break would have been perfect.
Mhm. Yeah, he didn't fit that attitude era. Like he had his attitude with the Hart Foundation with him and Neidhart there, but it was a different attitude. They
Yeah,
were coming up with the high we're punks, we're a-holes in a way, like that attitude era. He didn't fit that attitude, and that wrestling style.
was he was 80s hair metal while literally DX was grunge. That's what it
Yes.
is.
Yep.
If you can go back to music history, the Hart Foundation, everything up until that time, up until when Stone Cold Steve Austin, everyone joins and everything. And the second they started adding blood, and Bret Hart wouldn't cut his face at
Yep.
all for any of these matches. You're looking at 80s metal. You're looking at 80s hair metal music, 80s music, right there. When DX comes in the picture, they're grunge.
Oh yeah. It was more hard rock, it was more grunge. It was that era for it.
Hmm.
And you think about it too, like Vince, I get it. He's a businessman. He's got to do what's good for business. But
Hmm.
no offense, you burned a lot of bridges for a lot of those superstars that would be there right now, working with some of your guys that have no mat skills, no mic
Hmm.
skills. Half these guys shouldn't even be in the ring.
No.
Like, no offense. Like, it's the one main reason I don't watch wrestling now with some of these guys. Like, some of them just can't wrestle. They don't cut a mic promo properly. I can't
I'll
watch
give it.
it.
I like watching The Miz. I think The Miz on the microphone he is he is everything that was old school then.
Mhm.
He was what Vince want. If he was around for Ruthless Aggression, he'd be the John Cena.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
If he was at the beginning of Ruthless Aggression, he'd be John Cena. But it doesn't help that he comes straight from real world,
Yep.
goes 2 years of wrestling training, gets thrown into the mix for everything. He has a great start. I wish the Miz was around. I wish he was a little bit young. Age age does make a difference. Miz, I love watching Miz. Miz is that old school guy.
Yeah, and he does have that error because he grew up as a fan of it, watching like not to say that none of these wrestling guys are not fans of it, and they all are. Like, hence why they want to do this, and they fell in love watching it back. They would like whether it was the Hulk Hogan or The Rock or Stone Cold or Shawn Michaels or Triple H or whoever. Like, that's where they got their love and their start for. But some of them, like, pull up an old YouTube video and watch some of these guys on the mic. Watch a Roddy Piper. Watch your Brutus the Barber Beefcake with the barber shop and the Piper's Pit. Like, I would love to see some of that stuff, especially now you can't have the crowds in there. Do
Hmm.
something cool. Get some of these fans back to like some of this wrestling and do some like little stupid little promos like that.
But they
Like,
can't. They can't curse. They used to be able to add at least one or two minor curse words here and there just to get away with murder. They can't do that.
no, I get that, but you know what? You can't tell me you can't do some of these, like some of those little stupid things that they used to do, like a barber
Yeah, I
shop or
know.
do something like that. That would, I think, get the crowds back into it and get the fans back into it. Because then when you can go live, imagine having that somewhere like an area set up, and you could have the fans come over and take a photo in that area.
True.
Imagine you were a kid and you went to a wrestling event and you saw Piper's Pit, and you got a chance to
Yeah.
take a picture there. I would have freaked as a kid to see the Piper's Pit or the barber shop with Bruce the Barber Beefcake. Like, I would have
Right.
loved to see that. Junkyard Dog, Coco Beware, all these guys, man, I grew up watching. Oh
You know what I
God, come
love
on.
though? You know what I really liked was the cartoon,
Hmm.
and that was good and it failed at the same time.
Yeah,
Could
yeah,
you? Oh, and then they try doing it now. It's not this. It's not the. A lot of the stuff then is not the same now.
nope. And you remember all the cereals and stuff like that. Now think about that with the marketing for somebody like an Owen Hart or British Bulldog, like doing some of
Yes.
those marketing now. Like, I would love to, like, as a joke, like British Bulldog doing Earl Grey tea. Imagine that. Like, seriously, like he's
Like a
sitting
Snickers
around.
commercial, and he's doing a tea thing. Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing a tea thing. It's like, Davey, you're not the same without your Earl Grey tea. You're drinking the American coffee. You need your tea. And he takes a sip of it and he's like, I'm better now. Like, like a Snickers pun. Like, I could see something like that. Like, and he had this sense of humor and the way he wrestled, the way he was. I think he could have done something like that. You know, it would have been funny. You know, having tea with the British Bulldog as a joke, but maybe he did that and sat down with everybody. I think it would be great to see back in the day.
But have you actually seen? Have you actually seen Harry wrestle? Besides seeing what you've seen on WWE, have you seen him wrestle?
Not live or nothing like that. No, it's been years since I've watched. I literally probably have not literally tuned in and watched an entire night of wrestling in probably 10 plus years.
I follow him from time to time, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll try to get as much matches as I can. And recently, he wrestled for one more time for Major League Wrestling. Reason why a lot of guys were asking where he's going to end up because he's now a free agent.
Right.
When I've watched him wrestle for Major League Wrestling, that's MLW for a lot of people. For a lot of people who end up are
Yeah.
watching this later, he is. You take everything Bulldog had and you put him in a 6'4", 6'5" giant.
Mm-hmm.
Speed, the strength is there, and not only has he taken his dad moves and gone to a whole nother level, he's gone to Japan to wrestle, where his dad was only there for a short while.
Right.
He's done it 2 or 3 times. Harry has. I would say he should have been in WWE a lot longer, and it's just that like they screwed up on marketing him. They screwed up on putting him as a tag team with the family tradition. Then WWE wanted to do Heart Foundation so bad that he would have been the perfect Intercontinental Champion fighting against Cody Rhodes at the time or Dolph Ziggler and when he
Yep.
started coming in. And definitely had him in later having him in the championship matches because he carries a match. You can't like just like the Usos and like Roman Reigns of today, you can't teach wrestling.
No.
It has to be in their blood. They
Mm-hmm.
have to on it. Um we're gonna go back to Seth Rollins. If Seth Rollins was trained better, Sting would have never been injured. You would have probably seen Undertaker versus Sting, the dream match that should have happened before the stupid Triple H versus Sting, which became DX versus NWO. It's the
Yep.
dumbest, the stupidest moment you could have ever had. You traded for Sting for DX versus NWO, and like, no, like what a messed up situation of Undertaker and Sting. You had it, just go.
Mm-hmm.
You screw it up for Triple H to botch Sting. Sting said right down the line, I would have definitely would have loved to have wrestled Undertaker. I wouldn't care. He did not. He would not have cared if he lost, but that would have been an amazing match. And then have him against Seth Rollins, have him against Triple H. No, I'm sorry. No, no. You could have Legends versus Legends. Then later could have done every other match you could have thought of. But no. And then the Undertaker streak would have been alive, and we would still be talking about. We wouldn't be talking about the Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels and Triple H that happened 2 or 3 times. We wouldn't be talking about that.
No.
No, we would.
I'm still upset that Undertaker has his one WrestleMania loss, and it's to that moron Brock Lesnar. I'm sorry.
Boo.
Well, true, but the first one, Brock Lesnar.
The
Like, come
first,
on.
okay, so the first one would have happened if Roman Reigns wasn't sick.
Yeah.
If Roman Reigns wasn't sick at the time, right? I may have gotten this date wrong or something. Let's just say it should have been Roman Reigns since day one, but Brock Lesnar was the obvious choice at the time. And Undertaker said, but that's only if Brock Lesnar would stay and not be a part timer.
Yeah.
We get it.
And the thing is, like, I don't know. I just don't care for Brock Lesnar. I just think he's a flake in a way. Does this, does this, does this. He's looking for his thing. Yeah, like he
Right.
wants to be famous. Like he wants to be the name, the talk of the town. Well, dude, stick with one damn thing and stick with it. If you had made the Undertaker lose to somebody like a Shawn Michaels,
Hmm.
hell, a Mankind back in the day, a Triple H, a Rock. Okay, I can understand. These guys have put in their blood, sweat, and tears in WWE
Yeah.
and did what they did to get to where they are. Brock Lesnar, he's a fad. Legit. Let's just call it what it is. He's a fad. And you look at the guy and the size of him, and when he was in UFC, he should have demolished the dude he was up against. And that dude pummeled him and then got him in a leg lock. And he was like, tap, 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 tap. I'm out. I'm out. I
Yeah,
get
but
it. A leg lock hurts. I
if
get
you watch
it.
if you watch the first fight, I watched every single UFC person say, "Oh my God, he didn't deserve to be there," until the guy he fought, his face was red and his nose was almost broken. The fact that he beat the hell out of him enough to make his face go completely red made people think that with enough training, Brock Lesnar could be here.
Mhm.
But yet again, these guys train all their whole entire lives. Brock Lesnar's only been doing this for a short time, and this is when he's like in between UFC and New Japan,
Yeah.
and he
Well, I
goes
mean,
against one more time against Kurt Angle for the New Japan title.
but he was a wrestler, though. He had training. He had the wrestling training, but stuff. But then he got big. That dude should have been a bodybuilder. Hit the gym, do that, and stuff like that, and kept with that. I just don't think if he had stuck with wrestling, okay, maybe. He did it for 3, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. Then he left to go to UFC. Then he left that after he got his butt handed to him and came back to wrestling. Then he left
But
again.
you're
Then he came back.
but Bro- but Brock Lesnar had the worst time ever. You're looking at Brock Lesnar being part of the ruthless aggression era, and at the
Mhm.
time there is no WCW, there's no ECW.
True. That's true.
So when the guy's done with his contract, where he's supposed to go, and at the time NWA/TNA wasn't really doing that great at the time.
Mhm.
So what's next for you? You go to New Japan. You take a couple years break. You go to New Japan. While in New Japan, you now get into UFC because some of those guys in New Japan are also UFC fighters. They also
Yeah.
do like the side fights. They also do mixed martial arts fights in Japan. So what does he do? He becomes interested. Okay, I can make an extra hundred. I can make an extra 100 grand to $1 million just on these matches. All right, I'm in. So what does he do? While in New Japan, gets into MMA fighting. It's literally one step into another because WWE at the time didn't have competition. They were all out. So you're burning all these wrestlers out. And once the contract's up, where do I go to get better? The indie scene wasn't great at the time. It was good, but it wasn't great.
Mhm.
Um, Florida Championship Wrestling wasn't great at the time. Ohio Valley Wrestling wasn't up to par at the time. So you have these two other companies that are just like, all right, this is where our minor leagues are coming from, and that's it. And Brock Lesnar already came from Florida wrestling, so he's not going to go back to the minors.
No. And you can't take somebody like that's a big guy like that. That's like it's like in baseball, like you have your MLB guy. He's been in the league like 10 years and he's a veteran. He's like put up numbers, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, sorry, you just don't have it this week. We're going to put you in AAA.
Yeah,
You don't do that. You wouldn't put somebody like a Derek Jeter in
no.
AAA. You're not putting Big Papi in AAA, Manny Ramirez in AAA, guys
Well,
like
well,
that.
you do. When they got injured, remember, A Rod and Derek Jeter, when they got injured, they went back to AAA for a hot second to get their skills
Yeah,
back, and then a couple
but
games
they were there for
later,
like
they were
three,
back.
4 games, and then they're back up top.
Right.
You can't do that with a Brock Lesnar in wrestling. You couldn't sit there and go, oh, we're going to put you over here for like, 3,
It's
4
like
weeks
it's
or
like
3, 4
Jordan
months.
getting a knee injury, and be like, all right, we don't want you blowing a knee. Go to the D League real quick, which is now the G League. Go play a couple games there and then come back. Let's hopefully your leg's okay. No, superstars don't do that. Look at Kevin Durant. You think they went to the minor leagues of basketball just to get their legs wet again? No,
No,
they go right into
nope.
that flow. Go
Yeah,
right
right
into
back
that
in it.
flow.
Yep. And they play during the summer and they play against other college players and other guys and pick up games and stuff like that to get back into it. But there's not like you don't sit there and go, oh, you just got out of an ankle injury. We're going to put you in the G League, like you said, for 5 or 6 games. That's 4 or 5 games up in the NBA. That's a difference of 8th place or 5th place.
Yeah.
You want them up there. Um, And I think that's the same thing with the wrestling. I think sometimes I would like to see a little bit more of like almost like a AAA of the wrestling. You
Hmm.
know, some of the lower cards where these guys are down there working on some stuff and doing that stuff and make those like house shows a little bit more accessible to the fans. I think those would be
That's
a lot better.
that's what NXT is. So when she was talking about NXT, where that's WWE's version of the minor league, and they have them on on televised events, but they are in one location. They don't travel like the other ones. They're only
Right.
in one location, and and it's also like going back to the old WWF days where they were playing the Manhattan Center for their Monday nights until other states were calling, "Hey, we want WWF in our home stadium,"
Yeah.
to where
And then this kicks in.
GM Studio, same exact thing. So,
Yep.
but so they saved face, and we're gonna do everything in house. You're gonna buy the pay per view, and the pay per views drew more because you get to see Charlotte Flair, you get to see Becky Lynch, and they were the main events of NXT. Um, NXT now, I think they're pushing way too much because they have to follow with AEW, and AEW still reminds me of the old WCW days, and I'm just waiting for it to end. And as we say or talk about, like we talk about British Bulldog and the what ifs, Harry's at that point where his dad's going to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. Does he sign the WWE contract to come into WWE? But right now, there's no room for him anywhere. And would he go into
Mm.
NXT? Then he would be an easy fit for Impact Pro Wrestling, which wrestles out of Tennessee, or AEW, which is right out of Florida, especially out of Tampa, Florida, and he could take a lesser drive, go into the stadium and wrestle guys like Jericho, um, and wrestle guys like Cody Rhodes, and be back into like a mini main event. Um, but then it is a giant what if. Does he deserve to be in WWE? Yeah, he actually does deserve to be in WWE. But does he need? He actually needs Paul Heyman to bring him in, because I don't see him working in the same conditions that he had before. And if they do the whole Tyson Kidd thing and do the Hart Foundation, you might as well just hand him a $5 million contract and he'll come back and do it with no problem. Just do that.
Right.
Give him a 2 year contract, give him $5 million. He'll show up for 2 years, just like they did for Dudley Boys. He's definitely going to come in for, yeah. That's actually, no. That's exactly what I think. The same thing how we go with the theories and stuff. I think they bring him in for a solid 2 year contract, just like the Dudley Boys did. 2 year contract, do Heart Foundation. Tyson Kidd can't wrestle, so he'll be the manager or whatever. And then Natalia brings in, her cousin into the ring, family and all. And yeah, once the induction's over, a couple months later, they give him probably the Intercontinental title or the US title, and then contract's over. I see him going straight to AEW.
Wouldn't be a bad idea.
I see 2 years in WWE, and then he's off to AEW, and that's only because of the Hall of Fame thing. That's
Right.
only because of the Hall of Fame, and that's because of his dad. Even though I think he'd be an amazing Intercontinental Champion, and I think he's going to be an amazing WWE Champion, not Universal Champion, but WWE, especially with Drew McIntyre, with the storyline with Drew McIntyre, The Miz, and AJ Styles. Throw him in there, and just like the British Bulldog, like you hit the British Bulldog theme for like a hot second, and then you hit a new main entrance for him, and just go, what the WTF is this? And you now have Harry Smith, not Davey Boy Smith Jr., which I hated.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why you would ever use. I get it, This is just scenario. This is just what ifs. What if? What if? What if? What if? What if? Anyway.
Right. I hear you.
Just like Georgia said to me, I'm done talking.
It's a long
Right
day,
when this
man.
thing is over, she's had a long day. I think she's tired. I mean, she's an awesome person. She's been super friendly. She's a good friend. She was able to do this show, and I really hope everyone enjoyed it. So I'd love to continue this. I love to do this as much as we can.
Yeah, every once in a while, definitely do something like this, talk up wrestling, and I would definitely be down with it.
right? You were like, yo, yeah, British Bulldog, hell's yeah.
Heck yeah, man.
When I told you this on a Sunday, you're like, wait, what? I was waiting
Yeah,
for everyone to leave. I was like, bro, guess what? Guess what? We're in. She said
yeah.
yes.
It's I mean, history. Yeah,
And
I'm
for
down.
her to sit
I'm
there, I
down.
mean, once we get Harry on board, Harry was throwing jokes at me the whole entire time, and I met their cousin Teddy first, and that's how I was
Yeah, I remember
introduced
you
to the
telling me that.
family. I got to meet Teddy's one of Teddy's sisters in Rhode Island. Oh, when I was in Rhode Island, I said, "Come meet me in Rhode Island and come to a wrestling match, and I'll get you in for free." And I think you were off doing PR stuff somewhere else.
Yep, I was in another state doing PR stuff. Yeah,
I was like, "No, the one time I take the drive to Rhode Island, you guys aren't around."
hey, you got to
Because I
coordinate these with us, all right?
no, this was so last minute because he was like, "Yeah, come, we'll take a road trip or whatever to Rhode Island and back." I'm like, "All right, we'll go to Rhode Island." And then Tommy Dreamer, I still remember that house show. I have to find the tape because someone said the look on my face when Tommy Dreamer slams the guy on the table, and I have Mr. Money, which is Teddy Hart's cat, right there on the table. I'm going, not the cat, and he turns and says, "You're next." I'm like, and Tommy Dreamer and I have a bit of history. Yeah, it's kind of scary at times, you know. I still fear for my life, and since last year, since 2019, when Tommy said Taz is coming back, and he had that crowd in front of my table, I'm still fearing for my life. So,
Ah,
and
you'll
the,
be fine.
and then to see Taz in AEW, no way, no way. The fact that like Harry knows the story too, and he knows the Taz story. The second I go to Florida to go visit him, going, guess what? We're gonna go see Taz. We're gonna go see Taz. I'm like, no, no, we're not going to see Taz.
I feel sick all of a sudden. There's my plane. I'm leaving.
Can't go. Oh no, I'm gonna go see someone else in Florida now. You're like, really? Who do you know? I got a few friends. I got a few
Yeah,
friends like Sammy Castillo. We go see Sammy.
yeah. Go see me. Do a live
Hour and
from
a half
your house,
drive.
right?
We go live. All right. Well, I'm off to bed. It's been way too late. It's like 12 o'clock here right
I
now.
know, right? 12 o'clock.
Uh, and whoever decided to stick around to watch us and everything. I know Jess said hi. A couple of people jumped in and out to see what we're talking about.
Yeah,
I mean, it is the what if situation. What if Owen Hart and British Bulldog did not pass during those times?
yeah. Let
Um,
us know your thoughts on it too. Like, let us know. Like, what if? Like, what do you think would have happened with their careers? How much longer would they have been? Some matchups they would have done. Some wrestling stuff that they could have done.
would
You
they
know?
have been in a TLC conversation as well too during? I
Yeah.
mean, right? No, he came after. So either way, this is like after like after whatever, before invasion, after invasion, during the attitude era, during that attitude era of the ladders, tables, and chairs match. Would they have been?
Hmm.
Would they be having the Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian, and oh my God, just being the four of them, a four-man rotation Survivor Series match
Yeah.
where you not only are you eliminated, but you also have to go like the last two people have to go fight for the titles for up on the ladder. So that
Yeah.
would have been crazy.
Would have been
A,
very
survi-
interesting to see.
a ladder elimination match, and the last two people remaining now have to go chase the titles.
Mhm.
Imagine that little match.
That would have been nice. Would have loved it.
I'll take 10% if that match ever gets created. Anyway, I will see you on Sunday. Merry Christmas to you. Happy
Merry Christmas to
Hanukkah,
you.
Kwanzaa, happy holidays, all the whole 9 yards. I hope you get a lot of pre-orders, especially with the Mando, especially with the Mando helmet. I mean,
Right?
look, the dark saber. That dark saber looks awesome. Just the handle
Yes.
alone, is awesome.
Be nice to see, right?
I may have to spend that money and order it, but I don't have it,
Right?
and I don't get that check like everyone else gets. But anywho, I'll pretend I got a check.
Right? Well,
Good
good
night,
night,
sir.
sir. Later.
I was about to leave, but I'm not. I was about to hit the leave button
Good
instead of hitting the end broadcast. All right, good night, man. We're ending.